You're listening to Mark of the Maker. And this is episode 10. Hey everybody, this is Mark Steiner, and you're listening to episode 10, and this will be a fun episode. We're going to have a little conversation about Knives of the movies, so let's check in with the guys, make sure we got everybody here. Sean, you with us?
Hey.
Mr. Tom, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Looking forward to this one.
Michael, you're here as well?
I'm here.
All right. Well, this is Knives of the movies. And so ever since I think the beginning of the conversations about the possibility of doing this show, this has been a show idea that's been kicked around. So, Michael, I know this is near and dear for you. So you want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this topic and why you think it's cool?
I think it's really cool because I think it influenced a lot of us makers, kind of, I guess, our generation, I guess what you call makers, that started late 90s, early 2000s, and a little bit earlier and stuff, and maybe into some afterwards. You know, these are all kind of these older movies, not all of them, but some of these are older movies that really influenced us wanting to go out and do cool stuff with knives. And hopefully we kind of explain a little bit here. And some of these movies are going to be all over the place. We'll have some newer ones, some older ones, and just general fun stuff.
I think when we had Nick Rossi on, he talked about the movie thing too, right? It was part of his growing up influence kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think you can talk to a knife maker that didn't enjoy some knife movie or some, movie that had knives in it and, and wasn't a part of them a little bit.
How about you, Sean? I know when we talked about all the United Cutlery stuff and all those other things, those ideas come from someplace, right?
Yeah, man, movies have had a huge influence on me. I mean, so the first knives that I really connected with were knives that I either saw in movies or in comic books.
And Sean, I've got a United Cutlery treat for you later.
Oh, really?
Well,
a little bonus.
Nice.
No, I'm just color me enthused.
Tom, what about you? You like this topic as well, I assume, right? It's a fun one.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. As a knife maker, anytime you see our stuff in the movies or on TV, it's kind of exciting, especially when it's in a good way. And growing up, some of those classic movies like the Rambo movies and all that. I mean, I can remember going to the store and getting the VHS tapes and I always wanted to watch like American Ninja or that kind of stuff. So I love this topic.
Spoiler alert there, Tom. I was trying not to say any movie names.
Well, I figured that one was pretty random. So
right.
Yeah, we're gonna have some pretty obvious ones, but we have to say them. They're the ones that did a lot of influencing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think this is gonna be fun. Mark, why don't you start us off?
Well, it's funny, today I posted that little teaser thing out on Instagram and in the Facebook group about what this episode was going to be, and just tell people that we were recording tonight. And it's hilarious because people can't help but throw their own into the mix, right? Their own favorites, which is really cool. I mean, that I think it means that it has universal appeal, and so that's pretty fun. So I mean, we might as well get it over with right away. So my first one is Rambo: First Blood from 1982.
Awesome movie.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So it's funny, we joked around about how doing the homework for this show meant that we got to watch movies. And so I actually watched First Blood again last night. I hadn't seen that movie in years and years and years. And it's definitely very cool. So the one thing I noticed when I watched it was that my recollection of the Rambo movies is, in my head, it was very much a hodgepodge of all the Rambo movies, I think. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
An amalgam.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's because it was so long ago. I mean, 82 is, that's quite a step back in time. So, when I think of the Rambo movies, I think of a whole bunch of different little snippets and, only one or two of them were actually from that very first Rambo movie.
Yeah, the very popular image is, him holding the machine gun and, the...
That's not from First Blood.
The bandana around his head. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's not at all First Blood.
And the cool thing about First Blood, it was very true to the book, I thought.
The ending ain't.
I don't know. It
Right.
ends differently, but I mean,
Should we spoil it? Because it's a pretty brutal ending. I dig it.
Spoil the movie?
They've had a long time
spoil
to
the
watch
book
that
ending.
movie, so
Oh, no, we should talk about that. It's been out there for a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the book, Rambo gets his head blown apart with a shotgun. That's how it ends.
Right.
And talk about a down ending for that movie, eh?
Right.
yeah, there's no second movie in that one.
Yeah, that would have made it rough on the franchise for the Rambo movies.
Yeah.
Not if you got the right writer.
Now, did he write that one?
Stallone?
Who? David Morrell wrote
Did this?
First Blood.
No, I'm talking about Sylvester Stallone, the screenplay.
That I don't know.
I don't think so. Not the first one.
Now, he did a ton of his own work, a ton of his own writing, and still I think continues to, with his Rambo and his Rocky and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he did the screenplay.
He did. So I'm on Wiki right now, and it says various scripts adapted from Morrell's book had been pitched to studios in the years since its publication, but it was only when Stallone decided to become involved with the project that it was finally brought into production.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he wrote the screenplay, but I agree. He was a big piece of it
He
for
got
sure.
involved somehow.
Right.
And Stallone also decided to let Rambo survive.
Huh.
Well, yeah, I don't think Stallone is. I think pretty smart when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
He kind of gets portrayed sometimes as this, different type of character. I think he's pretty savvy when it comes to that stuff.
For sure. And the cool thing about First Blood is this was one of the main new movies of that genre where the knife was a star, it felt like also.
It absolutely introduced and made it is 100% the version of the sorry, I fucked that all up. It is 100% the reason for the survival knife boom.
Right.
That kind of rocketed in the 80s. And it's very interesting that some of those guys that made some of these knives were influenced by the Iron Mistress in 1952.
Yeah.
This is like the second iteration of this. We have the Iron Mistress movie in 1952. And I don't know if any of you guys picked that, but, this is the story of... Did anybody pick that? I don't want to step on dicks here.
I didn't. I almost switched to it, but I didn't.
Well, this is your James Bowie movie. And some of those early 70s, whatever, knife makers that started getting to making Bowies and stuff, they were influenced by that movie, that John Nelson Cooper knife that was in that movie. And there's actually some talk about people were a little bit confused about who made the knife for a long time in that movie. Interesting story about that.
Very cool.
Yeah. Do you have that story handy, or are you familiar with it?
No, it's just they spent a lot of time researching for that movie and researching the knife for the movie and what it wanted to be. And then there was these stories of who actually built the knife for it. Some people said it was Randall, and that may have been just because of the popularity. But in the end, I believe it was John Nelson Cooper that did it for it.
It wasn't Randall.
Then you had these guys.
It wasn't Randall.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Randall. But that was what these rumors that went around at that time. So you had these these guys that were influenced, and so you had this huge Bowie boom in that day, and some of those guys made the knives for the movies that made us into knife makers, which is such a crazy kind of idea that we're sort of a second generation movie loving knife making group.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know it wasn't Randall because Randall actually makes a Model 12 Smithsonian Bowie, and it's available now. Mm-hmm. You can order them, and it is a replica of the knife used in the Iron Mistress.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, there was another name that was tossed in there too. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But it was interesting.
So in the movie, John Rambo has Jimmy Lyle survival knife, right? And so this thing is sawback, matches in the handle, needle, thread, compass in the inside of the cap on the back, the whole deal. And it's pretty cool. It was really interesting watching the movie last night, kind of in this context, thinking about knives specifically instead of it just being an aspect of the story. And yeah, it definitely plays a huge role in that movie.
Man, that was the star of the movie when I was a kid.
Yeah, when I saw it, to my eyes, hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that I got that United Cutlery version, and woo, interesting.
Well, one thing I didn't realize until I started doing research for the show, and I don't think this actually came into play in the first movie, was that the ends of the guard are Phillips and flat screwdrivers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think he used that stuff in the first movie. Maybe in a later one, but not in the first movie that I recall from last watching it.
That knife wasn't in any of the other movies.
No.
No, it changed.
It's a different knife in First Blood, too.
Okay.
Now, I can tell you that the United Cutlery version, I tried to use the Phillips. It didn't work that great.
Seems a little dangerous.
No.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was like, I'm going to do something with this. You know, I got to try it. It didn't work.
13-inch Bowie knife spinning around. You're trying to turn a screw.
Mm-hmm. Luckily, I didn't cut myself.
One of the interesting things that they said is that all the knives in the first Rambo movie were real. They were not prop knives. That there were in the later movies, but in that first in the first movie, they're all real knives, which is interesting.
It is.
I didn't know that.
Nor did I.
And man, the scene that really got me in that movie is when they take the knife and they, clean slice the sheet of paper. I remember being a kid and seeing that and be like, yeah,
right.
That's how a knife ought to do.
Yep.
And just being enamored with that. I mean, it made an impression on me.
Yeah, I mean,
did anybody possibly think about jumping into a tree and seeing if
that's
it would
exactly
fall?
what I was going to say. Because, I mean, come on, it happened. And whenever you're hiking and you're someplace like that, I'm like, I could do it. I know I could. I've never tried it, but it goes through my mind.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't, Tom.
Right?
This would be a 3-man show.
I'm pretty sure I could do it. But
He would have made it, dude. You've got the wrong attitude.
Did you not watch the
Right,
movie?
right.
Yeah. Dude, he's going to sew his arm up when he hits the ground, and it's all going
Right.
to be cool.
Yeah, one of the movie trivia sites I read said that he actually did some of that stunt work on that whole sequence and either broke his ribs or busted a rib or fractured one or bruised it or something. So that reaction when he hits the branch and that was a real thing because he actually got jacked up on that scene.
that's crazy. I know I think it was one of the Rocky movies that like Dolph Lundgren put him in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he told him to punch him. Is there some story about that? He told him to
That's a bad decision.
punch him as hard as he could or something. Yeah.
This
awesome.
So yeah, the Jimmy Lyle knife is very, very cool. And so there's a bunch of versions of that even today that people are making.
Yeah. I think it's still being made. I don't think they're making it, but I think it's still being made under license.
Yeah, I believe so, too.
So that maker, for people that aren't familiar with him, right? He was elected to the board of the ABS in 1977. He was president of the guild starting in 1978 and kind of acted as a liaison between the two. And so yeah, very, very respected Arkansas knife maker.
Yep.
And just a phenomenal all-around knife maker. I'm fortunate that Mike Franklin, the guy who mentored me, was mentored by Jimmy and actually had a few handmade pieces from Jimmy that I got to handle. And they were all, without exception, just superb knives, especially the folding knives. I mean, they were exquisite.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool. All right. So that's Rambo First Blood. And if you haven't seen it in 20 or 30 years like me, it's worth watching. I thought it was a very entertaining movie. So it was good. And it was a heavy movie. I mean, the story in that first one is, I mean, I guess they all are, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's my favorite.
yeah, for sure.
Well, it's a real it's got a good actual story to it. It's not just, Delta forcing type of, that genre that got hit real heavy.
Yeah.
It was actually just a good story.
Right.
And I read an article on that movie and basically how it's less of an action movie and more of a treatise on post-traumatic stress disorder and the generational differences between Korean War veterans and Vietnam veterans. It was a very interesting read. It put the movie in a little bit of a different light for me.
Me too, Sean. I read a bunch of that kind of stuff and then watched it and I was like, yeah, absolutely. There's a strong message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's some heavy shit going on with the undertones there.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to go like we did on Five Knives. We're going to kind of go around the table, I'll call it, and have each guy give a movie and then spin her back around. So, Sean, you got a movie you want to talk about?
The one I'll talk about first is The Hunted. And I think that it's the perfect follow-up to First Blood because I believe there's a generation of knife lovers out there that the Tom Brown Tracker knife is their Rambo knife.
Oh, yeah.
That's the knife that brought them to the party. And I believe that makes The Hunted a very important movie.
When did that come out?
2003, I think.
Wow.
2003?
Wow. Getting old.
That's been a while. But I remember when that came out, I was super excited about it. And I'm not a super big fan of the Tom Brown knife, but what it was, once again, the knife was a star.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And well, it's a pretty strong movie anyway. Del Toro's a fantastic actor, and he really did a good job on that part. Tommy Lee Jones did well. The fight choreography is really well done. I mean, there's stuff you can pick apart on it, but that's just if you want to needle it.
It's like watching Forged in Fire in a movie.
The forging scene was a bit much on that one.
Hey man, suspension of disbelief.
But still a fun movie.
But yeah, you have to. It was a great movie. I enjoyed the hell out of that movie. You can nitpick it to death on the knife fighting and yeah, you get cut like they did, you're going to bleed out and all this stuff. But hell, we can't complain. It was a movie with a knife as a star and knife fighting and so quote unquote knife making.
Yeah,
and with big actors, it was a cool movie, and I think Sean hit the nail on the head there. It may influence the third generation of, another generation of knife makers. It may be that important because it was that much of a talked about movie in the kind of knife world.
Yeah, got a lot of coverage.
I mean, everybody was talking about it. There was a lot of dudes that were making, the copies basically. There was a lot of that.
I would like to see sales numbers on the Topps tracker.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet it's huge.
That has moved tons of units. I would say, if I was to wager a guess, I'd say probably at least 500,000 units.
Everyone's clamoring to get.
I don't think Topps
one of his
makes
knives,
that many knives, dude. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe not. But,
really?
But at that time, they were pretty big. They were pumping out a lot of really tactical type knives.
Well, they still do. They have lots of models, but I don't know if they make that many numbers of any one knife.
Well, what I'm saying is at that time, I think they were very, popular company, I guess.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people talking about them, and I don't know, you seemed like you saw that thing all over the place for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the generational thing is a good point, right? Because those movies are 20 years apart. Rambo and The Hunted.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're fairly similar movies thematically. I mean, they both deal with PTSD to a certain extent.
Very much.
And there is a generational thing if you take it into Benicio del Toro's character versus Tommy Jones' character.
Now, have you guys ever handled one of the customs?
I haven't.
They're pretty.
I think once I know once at Blade Show I handled one of them.
They're nice knives, and that sawback is.
Yes, they are.
Man,
I would like to handle one of the original Tracker knives because all I've handled is the tops, and they're really clubby. I mean, they're really thick. I've reground.
Well,
I've reground a lot of them.
They are quite thick,
and that makes a big difference on them. But
I think the design is pretty well done for being such a big, your quote unquote survival knife, piece. But I think you really have to have some nice lines and finesse and grinds to make it work. It has to be just right to work, I think, and it may not be one that's that well suited for production. I don't know. I'm not trying to disparage,
No.
any knife out there, but the custom is very cool, and the companion piece with
Yeah, they're beautifully
great
done.
pieces. And it hits that kind of a great sheath knife combo sort of thing. That's another thing that the Rambo knife did too. It hit that Randall type of idea of, the stone in there, and you just had this kind of a cool combo that you could kind of see yourself roaming around the woods with.
Oh yeah.
And it was, man, that's a good pick, Sean.
Yeah, really good pick.
And now, man, the Sayoc Collie parts in the movie, like when they're showing the Sayoc Collie training, that's very dramatic and really a good part of the movie.
What? Yeah, oh yeah. And I think like even the Woodstockers, or the shoes, the moccasins, whatever they used, it seemed like there was a lot of talk going up on that. Like even in bushcraft in general seemed to kind of go up after that movie.
Yeah.
And Tom, I think you're a lot more into the bushcraft stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, are we on the point on this
Oh
one?
yeah, I think
off?
There's still a lot of the bushcraft crowd. They're fairly divided. You either love the tracker or you kind of hate it. There's not a whole lot in between, and there's a lot of people that feel that it's the best. I fall out of the, I don't hate it, but I don't appreciate it. I feel like I like just the utility of a regular bigger blade without all the bells and whistles, basically. But there's a lot of people that love it in the bushcraft crowd. I mean, there are pages and pages and pages of discussion on the forums about that design.
Oh, I'm sure it brings back, even back in the day when that came out, there's a ton of that, about whether it was worth it or if it worked or, all this stuff. But the fact of the matter is it brought up that discussion. And I think that's the important part of it. The fact that it brought up that much discussion about it.
Yeah.
And about bushcraft and about, the kind of survival stuff is what makes it such a cool knife.
Well, and
even if you don't like it.
It's a tool, at the end of the day, it's a tool. If you like this tool, good. If you don't, good. We can have a discussion as long as everybody's agreeable,
Yeah. Either way, I like the movie.
The movie was awesome. I haven't watched that. I watched it in the theater. I'm probably going to have to watch all these after we talk about them again.
Right.
Yeah, I may have to do a little homework.
Yeah, for sure.
Homework.
That's definitely.
To make sure Sean picked correctly, I will watch The Hunted. Writing that down right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like, we talked about this before we started recording or before the show. And what's weird is some of these movies ran on TV in some form, or like in a cut form or whatever, or ran on cable stations and all kinds of stuff. And now, and some of them, we went back to watch them in prep for this episode. They're hard to find. I mean, I think Rambo was on like Hulu or something, as an example.
Well, I looked on Netflix and Amazon Prime, and I couldn't find any of the ones on my list. I think one of them, but the two that I wanted to watch, I had to go and buy from iTunes. So
yeah,
or rent or whatever, however you want to do it. But yeah,
you didn't go to Blockbuster and pick one out.
Yeah, like 30 years ago.
Right. All right. So Sean, that was The Hunted from 2003. Good call. Good pick.
Thank you. Tom,
what's your first one, Tom?
So, my first one, and basically, I picked mine later in the cycle, and I was actually going to choose First Blood for my first one, but I had to go with, since that was taken, I went with Rambo First Blood Part 2, because, dude, those knives were like so awesome, and once again, the knife is the star of the show, and I actually prefer the knife from First Blood Part 2 from Rambo. It's a little bigger, a little more flashy. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of my favorite knives out of the movies. That design was it for me as a kid. The movie's good too. I mean, it's definitely not, a drama, like First Blood. I mean, it's like American Ninja type stuff, it's like,
yeah,
Stallone's going to go blow up everything and rescue the POWs, which, I mean, it's another great, fun story. It's not you're not going to get smarter watching this.
That was a lot of storylines in the 80s.
Right. They were awesome, right? But, and also, as living in Arkansas, Jimmy Lyle, has I've really appreciated his work. You know, he was dead by the time I started getting into it, but his wife Marilyn was still at pretty much all the shows that I would go to around here. You know, she continued on making the knives, and, you know, I go down to Hot Springs quite a bit. We have a church camp down there, and, when I go through Russellville, which is where the Lyle shop was. And it's kind of sad because right on the side of the road where I go through, the sign is there, right? The Lyle Knives sign.
Oh, wow.
And it's always been there. And here a few years ago, it got knocked down and it was on the side, you know, and it was there for a couple years. And now it's back up. And one time I tried to pull back in, it's all overgrown where the shop was and everything. And it's like, you know, the windows are knocked out and the doors are knocked in, and it was kind of sad. But, you know, Jimmy Lyle, like you mentioned, Mark, he did such a volume of work. I mean, if you do a search, I mean, he did everything from kitchen knives to Bowie knives to these awesome, really slick folders, and he made a lot of knives. He also really was one of the first ones to start D2, which I love. It's one of my favorite steels. And, for me, I chose Rambo, First Blood Part 2 for my first one. Just great knife, great movie.
I was wondering why, you know, you wouldn't pick like a 3 or 4, you know, since one was picked, but now I kind of get it. You want to hit the Lyle.
Yeah. And really, I like that knife better than any of the others. So even I would have chose First Blood because I think it's a better movie. But I actually like the knife out of Rambo better. So it was an easy pick.
I'm going to agree with you on that. I think that the Rambo 2 knife is a more stylish knife. It's two-tone, it's larger, it's just a more dramatic piece, and it stands out more.
Yeah. I think the knife from the first one was probably more useful, but the second knife as a kid,
overall,
as a kid, you don't know. I mean, none of these are probably really great survival knives, but who cares, man? It was what got us excited, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You should get one of each, jump out of a tree into a tree both times, and see which knife
there you go.
works best.
I'm going to use gunpowder to seal my wounds instead of sew them.
Oh, that's so badass.
Oh yeah.
That's out of 3. That's 3.
The Rambo 2 knife was bigger than the first knife, right? And it had a big, long clip shape.
It had saw teeth.
Yeah, the first one did too.
Yeah. But yeah, it was even more aggressive.
Right.
Well, you can't go. It couldn't have been smaller. I mean, come on.
I don't know. Rambo.
Hell no.
Rambo 4, the knife in that pretty much sucks. Hope nobody picked that, but sorry.
What are you talking about? It was like a Dow.
Oh, okay. Right to the core.
Oh,
damn.
Sorry,
Tom.
man.
Was it all for the kitchen knife comment? Is that why?
Not like that shitty Dow-shaped knife from Rambo 4.
Damn.
I guess, man, but it didn't have a handle or anything, man.
Well, he was out in the jungle and he
okay, all right.
A la the Hunted.
Sorry for ruining your pick, man. Time out. Michael has to pick another one. We'll be back in 5.
No, I didn't.
I'm just kidding.
Too funny.
No, I was thinking back on Sean's pick on the Hunted and stuff, and Tommy Lee Jones was, you know, who was fighting Benicio del Toro in that one. And he had I doubt someone has picked this one, but he's done a lot of knife fight in his movies and stuff. He did like a really extensive knife fight in Under Siege.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of I can't say this.
Seagal?
Another kind of, what's that?
What's Under Siege?
Some of his movies don't quite do it for me. It's a Steven Seagal movie.
Yeah. And on the ship?
Tommy Lee Jones was the bad guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But he did a pretty aggressive, knife fight with Seagal in that one.
Mm-hmm.
So he's done his body of knife fights pretty good.
Tommy Lee Jones did?
Body of work there. Yeah.
Yeah. The final knife fight between him and Seagal really isn't that bad. A lot of reverse grip action.
Doesn't Seagal have like a
well choreographed knife fight?
Does he have a Mark II dagger?
Yeah. Mark II was featured prominently.
I think he stuck it in his head.
Although
or something.
I think he finishes. Does he finish that fight with a kitchen knife though?
Yeah, maybe because he was a chef.
Yeah, I think he may have been using a big chef's knife, but I'm not sure. And I believe Tommy Lee Jones may have had a Mad Dog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
And now, don't quote me on that, but just from how I was watching, it looked kind of like a Mad Dog with how the blade and handle were executed.
Huh.
Tom, to the Google machine.
Right?
We heard him clacking away.
Yeah, I just went to the wiki on Under Siege, but
I don't know if the wiki understands that we need to know the knife information.
Some of them do.
so it is a Mad Dog, it looks like.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So Birch, I think that brings us to your first pick.
Let's see here. I'm going to go with something a little bit different on this one. Not so old, not so influential, but man, it's a knife you see a lot. I'm going with Hannibal.
Oh, yeah. Good choice.
This wasn't, it followed up Silence of the Lamb. It was made in 2001. Ridley Scott movie. It's not his best, but it's still your Hannibal Lecter type stuff. But I picked it because it's got the Spyderco Harpy in it. And, you look at the Harpy and the Civilian, and they're these very, very aggressive knives. And it seems like anytime there's like a bad guy in a movie, they're going to have one of these damn knives. And supposedly in the book, the writer actually mentions Spyderco by name.
Oh, really?
That he goes and buys a
does.
Spyderco.
I've read the books.
And a Civilian.
Yeah.
And I found this interesting quote from the book. It was like, he goes in and asks for a Civilian. Now, Civilian is, do you guys know what that is? That knife is?
Yeah.
I'm familiar.
Okay, it's not just real bad hook, like a, carpenter's hook type of, knife. It curves again, like it has an extra curve.
And they're big.
And it was made in like,
Yeah.
it's a big knife. And it was made in the 90s for law enforcement because they actually approached Spyderco because they needed a knife for undercover agents that weren't allowed to carry guns in whatever situation they're in. So they developed this really wicked, badass, serrated Civilian sort of knife. So anyway, in the book, the guy had wrote, Dr. Lecter went in to buy one. He's like, the guy said, not a lot of folks know about that. I never stock but one. And Dr. Lecter says, I only require one. I was just saying, what store has one Spyderco? That's all we stock, just one of this production knife. But it's
because it's so evil.
Well, he takes out in the book. He takes out a dude pretty wickedly. I haven't watched the movie, so I don't know. But
the movie's not bad, but it followed Silence of the Lambs, which was or Silence of the Lambs, but whichever one that is. But that was such a great movie.
How do you
it's hard
top
to
it?
follow that? Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. The fact that the knife is very prominent, it's just cool. And the series, which I thought was really good, the Hannibal series, they use a Spyderco a couple times. They follow along with it. I don't know if that's just happenstance because, the Spyderco is such a knife that gets used by all the bad guys, or if they looked at it and said, yeah, let's use another Spyderco. But it was kind of neat.
Yeah, good choice.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting choice.
Yeah, different choice for sure. You guys forced me into the esoteric.
I actually thought of that knife and the Hannibal Lecter thing, but I hadn't seen the movie, so I didn't go with it. Really good choice. Awesome.
Thanks, Tom.
I guess I did not realize. I'd guess I'd only ever seen that knife as a full serrated.
The Harpy?
But yeah, or the Civilian.
No, okay. So in the movie, that he didn't have a Civilian. He only had the Harpy. But it was not a serrated version, and they came out, I guess, with a regular and a serrated, but then they stopped making the plain.
Okay.
So
I was gonna say Civilian. I whenever someone says Spyderco Civilian, what I think of is the full serrated one, but it looks like they actually made a plain edge Civilian too.
I did not know
I
that.
didn't know that either.
I didn't either.
I think I would just want pure serrated evilness on that thing.
For that use.
Yeah, hell yeah. In for a penny, in for a pound with that dude. You know, go all the way.
I think you'll get your pound with that knife for sure.
Oh, hell yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Spyderco Forum guys are saying it's a collectible piece. Very interesting. I didn't even know it was out there.
Well, shit. Now I got to get one.
Damn it.
This podcast is going to cost us a lot of money, dude.
I never thought it would cost us in movie rentals.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go back around the horn. What do you got, Mark?
Okay, so my number 2 pick was, and these aren't in any kind of order because this was a great movie, but my number 2 is Highlander.
Oh.
Ooh. There could be only one.
Yeah.
Dude, you like got all the ones that you told me I couldn't have.
Yeah, how's that? Isn't that interesting, Tom? So, just as background for people, when we started actually putting the details for the show together, we had to put together these picks. And as soon as we made started to make a list of movies, Tom rattled off like 50 of them in a row. And, yeah, there were some good ones in there. So I couldn't help but steal. But Highlander, good movie. It's probably like some other movies. It's probably not quite as good as I remember it being when I saw it the first time, which was probably in the theater.
Yeah, it is. I watched it a couple months ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
So there's actually 2 swords in the Highlander, right? There's the one from when he was young.
The Clan MacLeod sword.
The Clan MacLeod sword, yeah. Which I'd seen that described as a claymore, but I don't think it really is.
It is not.
Because a claymore has forward-angled guards, right?
And a claymore's much bigger.
Yeah.
It's a long 6-foot such blade, or, all told.
So it's different than that. But in the movie, that kind of gets out of the picture sort of early on, at least in the timeline of the movie, right? From his existence forward, and becomes the headstone for his wife's grave. And then from there, he ends up with Sean Connery's katana, right? And that's kind of his sword for the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, it sounds like there were a few different ones. This is another one where there was another movie where there ended up being an entire franchise of follow-ons and a TV show and a bunch of other stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love those movies, man. The first one was awesome.
No, the first one was fantastic. All the rest,
There was one where he went back in time and forward and back a few times around the horn. It got very confusing.
Well, of course, it's confusing to a mortal.
Yeah, right? I watched all those when they came out, and I loved Highlander.
It was a good one.
I love the first one. Well, I was rooting for the Kurgan to win, so it didn't end the way I wanted it to.
Sean was disappointed.
And once again, these are good actors in this movie. I mean, it's like,
Wait a
it's
minute.
not a B movie.
Sean Connery, yes. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean,
Christopher Lambert.
Dude, Clancy Brown's a damn decent actor.
I'm talking about Christopher Lambert. Come on now.
He has
I liked
his
him in
moments.
the movies.
Bless
I
his
thought
heart.
he did a great job.
I thought I
in
read
these
some
movies.
trivia that said movie tidbit thing that said that he didn't speak English prior to this movie, or at least not very long prior, or something crazy.
That's interesting.
It always looks like he's looking at something really close to his face.
He's looking out for swords.
I don't.
Right? He's
I
trying
don't
not to
know.
get his head chopped off, Birch.
I guess. But I'll tell you what, I love the katana and with the ivory handle when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But it did that trope that we saw all the time when the swords would spark. Like everything sparked when they hit each other and shit. Like you hit a concrete.
Well, that's the energy from the quickening, man.
shit.
Yeah, that was magic, dude.
That was just
Yeah.
a movie trope from that day. It's like anytime
boy.
the swords would hit together or stuff like that. And when I was a kid, it bothered me. I'm like, all right, when this hits this, it's not going to spark. But they always did in the movies back then.
So does Abby hate watching movies with you? Because my wife hates watching any shows or movies with me.
The older I get, the less I care. I'm better at just suspending my belief about a lot of stuff. As long as
I try, but some of the gun stuff and medical stuff, it's like, ugh.
As long, if they don't act like it's a gun movie or a knife movie and then not be in that realm. If you're not going to give a shit, if the movie doesn't care about those things, I don't care then. But if you're going to pretend like you care, you better have your, details down right.
Yeah, that's how we could watch the A-Team, right?
I watched it to see them build stuff. I watched that whole episode just to see what they were going to cobble together. Everything else was ancillary.
That's how I learned how to shoot. That's why I can't hit shit.
And all the stormtroopers. They learned the same way.
So Christopher Lambert had just barely learned to speak English when he took this role in Highlander. The only other English-speaking film he had been in at that point was Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan in 1984.
Oh, I remember that. I watched that movie.
He only spoke a few words in.
That was actually a good interpretation of the Tarzan thing.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, so kind of interesting. And he actually has a medical condition, Birch, his vision. It says the patented intense gaze he often shows in his roles is the result of myopia that he came down with at an early age.
Well, shit.
So he's got a condition.
Way to make fun of him, Birch, the handicap
Way
dude.
to cap on his handicap.
Edit.
I got a lazy eye. You want to make fun of me a little bit before we close this one up? That'd be kind of cool.
So I guess we just call it intense now.
Yeah.
It's like my receding hairline is just really intense hair.
It's a condition that causes the eyes to focus incorrectly, making distant objects appear blurred.
Well, I just feel like an ass now.
Oh.
All right,
aren't you sweet, Mr. Birch?
Yeah.
Now, hey, nobody's mentioned Kurgan's sword. And that puts the katana to shame. I mean, you got the spring-loaded V-guard. It breaks down to go in an awesome line carry case. I mean, shit, that's style, man.
Oh, yeah.
I do remember him putting it together. That was pretty cool.
Oh, hell yeah. Before the hooker hits the room? Shit, yeah.
I'm over here trying to find some sort of Christopher Lambert foundation I can donate to make me feel better. What was okay, you guys would know this. I know one of you guys is going to know it. Fantasy movie, probably early 80s, where there was swords where the hilts shot out?
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Shot out.
It was either a double sword and one shot out, or maybe the hilt shot blades out. It was
blades coming out of the guard?
Yeah. It was a decent...
I know what you're talking about.
Decent little fantasy movie back in the day.
Man, I don't remember what that was, but I know what you're talking about. I can visualize what you're describing.
Yeah, somebody out there in podcast land will know.
Hopefully it's not someone with myopia who we've lost from our listenership already.
Shit. All right, on to you, Sean. Thanks, Mark.
I think making fun of Christopher Lambert like that was a little myopic, if you ask me.
Exactly.
It is Christopher Lambert.
I've heard it both ways, okay?
It makes me feel cooler to call it
just that. In the last couple of minutes.
Yeah.
All right, Sean, what's your number 2?
All right, my number 2 is Predator. And,
shit, yeah!
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. And, man, basically for the Predator machete, as built by Jack Crane. Crane did 3 different knives for the movie. There's the MCS Hunter, the MCS Survival, and then the Predator machete. They're all very cool knives. The Hunter and the MCS Survival are both hollow handle knives. The Predator machete's kind of a sub-hilt sort of deal. And it's just a beast of a knife. Multiple grinds, really interesting blade shape. And that knife hooked me. I mean, especially in the part of the movie where Billy's standing on the log. He's waiting to face down the Predator and he just cuts the shit out of his chest. I remember seeing that as a kid and being like, hell yeah, man. If you're going to go out, that's how you want to fucking go out.
Yeah.
Dude, that thing is huge too. I mean,
it's a beast.
It's big.
And heavy.
I actually like the Predator. I like Jack Crane's hollow handled knives better than the Rambo knives, you know. To me, they're very classic.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, they're very well done.
Yes.
Of that time, I mean, I can remember them being in magazines, and I mean, at the time there was like all these magazine articles with all these same knives in the same articles, and the Jack Crane ones were always just very clean.
Oh yeah, very very cool work, and that movie is just so badass. It is filled with so much damn testosterone. It's crazy.
To the backpack minigun.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Now supposedly they're coming out with another one. One of the actors from the original Predator is directing it. So who knows? And it's supposed to be kind of similar to that, universe.
Well,
Man, I hope they have some cool knives.
I thought Predators was pretty decent with Adrian Brody.
That was really well done.
It was not the worst movie I've seen.
No,
and fun
not
fact
at all.
on that, the movie or the knife that Brody carries in that movie is the same Predator machete that was used in the first Predator movie.
No shit.
Yeah, the prop department
cool.
guy got it from the first movie. They brought him on for the reboot. He still had it. They were looking for a knife for that character, and he said, "Hey, we'll just reuse this."
Huh.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, all the wear you see on it was wear that it accumulated in storage with him.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, they did a really good job with that movie. When I heard that was coming out, and didn't Rodriguez do that one? Wasn't that one of his movies?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, I was like, I liked the director, but I was like, Adrian Brody is, it's hard to connect the two.
Yeah, dude,
You're
I was iffy on
muscle-bound.
that too, but I thought he did a good job.
Well, shit, I'm gonna have to watch me all sorts of Predators.
I know, I got a list going. I haven't seen Predators, so
It's
I'm
good,
gonna watch
man.
that.
It's pretty good.
It is. It's worth your time.
Yeah, but that original, though,
I love this.
And there's all kinds of nods to the original in Predators. I mean, you can see all kinds of little, winks, little Easter eggs, as it were.
That first Predator knife is awesome because it's like swedge on the end of the blade, and then a step, and then a swedge all the way down the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, if you look,
Trivia, that thing weighs 2.25 pounds.
Shit.
Wow.
Okay.
if you
The
look at the
Predator.
blade shape, there's a certain amount of Navajo to it with the way the clip executes.
That's what it is. I was trying
Sure,
to
I
think
can
of
see that.
how to explain what that looks like, and you're right. You're 100% on that. That kind of real quick
I have my moments.
cut in. Yeah, but
Yeah,
you're,
100%.
you're spot on when he stood up on that log. It was.
Oh,
it
dude, I was ready to cut
badass.
my chest and go to it with him. I was like, hell yeah, we'll both take out this Predator, dude, or we'll die trying.
Just like when
I
Arnie.
ain't cutting my chest. I'll jump on a tree, but I ain't cutting my chest.
You'll end up cutting all sorts of stuff. But yeah, same thing when Arnie gets, prepared to take out the Predator, gets, lights all his fires and shit, sets his traps. You're just like, yeah. And there's no way that didn't influence us as knife makers. It was such a very cool survival out there doing it, got your knife and your wits, and that's it. It struck something in you. But the one they're redoing is coming out, I guess, this year. It's directed by Shane Black. But it's going to have Olivia Munn, whatever, how you pronounce her name.
Yeah, man.
Munn.
Moon, Lambert, Lambert, whatever.
Could be good. Who knows? Could suck.
I give it a spin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, I'll watch it. No way I wouldn't.
All right, so that's Sean's second one, right? So, Tom, what's your number 2?
So far I've picked all these. That was on my list too. But anyways, pretty awesome.
So this is so funny, Tom. It's like Sean had his list right away. I picked mine because I'm like, Sean's a smart motherfucker. I'm going to do whatever he does, and I need to get some movies picked. And then Tom got a hold of me, and he's like, I want Rambo: First Blood and Highlander and Predator. Or The Hunted or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, dude, 3 strikes,
then
you
I'm
are
like,
out.
This one. Yeah. Anyways,
Tell me you didn't pick
It
Predator 2.
no.
When Gary Busey was.
No.
What do you got,
Gary
Tom?
Busey was extra crazy in that one.
So my pick for number 2. It's kind of a weird pick, but I picked Crocodile Dundee.
You got to.
I mean, it really needed to be included because, I mean, who hasn't been at the table with a big knife and they're like, no, that's a knife,
If I had a nickel for every time I've heard that, Well, I wouldn't be sitting here
Right.
talking to you guys. How about that?
Right? You get a cup of coffee.
No, I would get way more than a cup of coffee every time somebody hears I'm a knife maker. Yeah, I'm hearing that once or twice.
Yeah. And you know, it was the first one was actually pretty good. It was a fun movie. You know, if you haven't seen it, you should see it. But, you know, once again, this is a movie where the knife is the star. Kind of weird researching it. There wasn't a lot of information on the knife. I mean, I had to dig a little bit to even figure it out. But I guess it was made by a guy. Let's see. His name is Daniel Watson, made the original one. And I guess the movie prop guy bought it at like one of these Renaissance fairs, and then had a guy, John Bowring, made the props. But the original, Paul Hogan still has the original, and yeah, pretty interesting. And it's a big knife. I mean, 16 inches overall. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun movie.
It was fun.
I can remember watching it.
And the Dundee rig was cool. Remember when folks were including the Dundee rigs with their knives?
Yeah. Kind of wearing it diagonal across the back. Pull it out. Yeah. Anyways, that's it. I mean, I'm not super excited about the movie. I actually almost picked Iron Mistress instead of this one because, you know, that was another iconic movie knife that inspired a lot of people. But this was more my generation, so I went with this.
Well, supposedly, like, he has full writing credits, I think, on that one. On that one, and maybe the second one, because wasn't there like three movies?
Yeah, there was 3.
And
you're talking about Paul Hogan?
Paul Hogan, yeah. And it's supposedly, you know, if you get full writing credits, there's like this huge amount of money you get paid for that, for having full writing credits. So he has made a ton of money off those movies.
Huh.
And I'm like 8% sure he owns 80% of Australia.
Well, and on the original one, their budget was under $10 million.
Yeah.
And it was like the second highest grossing film in the US for that year. So yeah, he made some cash on that.
Oh yeah.
The other 2 were kind of flops. They weren't as fun.
No, oh no. I mean, it was, you know, the same jokes, the same, and it was interesting once, you know, when you saw it. They just
a bit of a one-trick pony.
You can't walk around and act like you don't know what's going on for 3 movies. But at the time, it was a pretty cool movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, fun film. Birch, what do you got next?
All right. I'm going to go into Cobra. Woo!
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell you right now, like First Blood and all that stuff, Predator, you can watch those over and over. Cobra, it doesn't hold up. This is not a 2018 enjoyable movie. Unless you're just...
Are you saying this assuming Stallone is not listening?
Yeah, no, Sylvester, you know... Yeah, it doesn't hold up. I'd like to say it does.
It wasn't a great film the first time around, honestly.
It wasn't the best film. You know, this was in 1986 when this thing came out. You know, and it was him. You know, he was, you know, your badass guy. And he rolls in a 1950 Mercury. And the reason you know it's 1950 Mercury because it rolls up with the license plate that says Awesome 50. And they hold on that license plate like you don't know how to read or some shit. You know,
but it was a cool car.
It was a great car, but then it says Awesome 50. You know, but okay, here's some interesting stuff. We all know the knife that we're thinking about. You know, the Herman Schneider knife that it's very curved. It's got these spikes sticking out of it.
It's like a D-guard.
Yeah, it's a D-guard sort of, but also kind of its own crazy piece.
Yeah.
Here's some interesting stuff about that. But what a lot of people may not have paid attention to or saw was the Michael Walker folder in this movie.
Oh yeah.
In the very beginning, there's this line that you guys probably remember where he's like, "You're the disease and I'm the cure."
Mm-hmm.
He pulls out this and I was zooming in and all sorts of shit. Michael Walker custom folder back pocket and throws it at the guy. Sticks it into the dude, which is pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
Now, some other interesting stuff about this movie. It was sort of based off a book called Fair Game by what was the lady's name? It was
Paula Gosling.
Okay, Paula Gosling. And oddly enough, there was actually another movie made by that called Fair Game with one of the Baldwins and Cindy Crawford that we probably all watched in the, I think, 90s or something like that, which was a very bad movie. Oh my gosh,
I've seen that movie. Rachel made me watch it.
It was a bad movie.
Oh, it was awful.
So yeah, those two. Just imagine those two movies are in the same universe. Cobra and Fair Game are based off the same damn book, but it was very loosely based. Once again, the writing credits thing, like I talked about, I think it's very important for payment and stuff like that. I think Sylvester tried to get writing. Exclusive writing rights for it, for the screenplay and all this stuff. So it's not, it's very far removed from the book. But anyway, the main character is him and this bad guy called the Night Slasher, which is very interesting because this was made in 1986. And we had, around that same time was, the Night Stalker. You know who I'm talking about, Sean.
Richard Ramirez.
Yeah, Richard Ramirez. He got abducted, or he didn't get abducted. He got caught in 1985. So the fervor and all this weird stuff was going on in the early 80s. And it's very interesting to me that you've got a character who is a serial killer, slashing, whatever called the Night Slasher, in a movie in 1986, when you had Richard Ramirez and who got caught in 85, and it caused all this panic in the early 80s, called the Night Stalker. It seems odd that those two aren't connected to me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm way off on that one.
You might have been listening to too many conspiracy podcasts.
I don't know. It just seems too odd that wasn't part of the mix, or how that couldn't have been in their minds when they're doing this. Because the movie, Cobra, it's about these serial killers that go and do bad shit. But the bad guy, he had, called the Night Slasher, the main serial killer bad guy. He had that big crazy knife. They showed him stropping it and using it and all this stuff like that. It was a very scary piece. Now, Herman Schneider he made a lot of very nice, cool knives. And he did a lot of art knives, but he also started making a lot of the, kind of Michael Price sort of looking knives, your San Francisco Bowie type knives. He made a lot of that stuff. And oddly enough, he was, do you guys know the King Tut knife? Buster?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Warrenski.
Yeah, this was a all gold type of knife. He was the first choice to make that knife, that reproduction knife. Now, this is a knife that is the $1 million knife. It's all gold, but they had a problem with trying to figure out how to harden some of this blade and some of these pieces. So he actually got Schneider and another guy named Jim Hardenbrook to help him out to get it. So he was still part of that. So I think that was very
Well, they lost the first one, didn't they?
I don't know.
Didn't they? I think they lost the gold on the first one they tried or something.
I'm sure it took more than a couple attempts to get that thing going. Which, if you've never heard of that knife, this is a tangent, but go check that knife out. It is a very important knife for, knife makers and collectors. And I believe it resides in the Smithsonian, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Or is it a private collection piece?
Let me look. I thought it was in a private collection in Japan, but let me Google it. I'll get back to you.
If I'm incorrect, we'll just come back and edit that right in and make me look correct. That's how that works, right? But, I thought that was that was one of those movies that kind of stood out when you were a kid. It definitely has changed for sure. But man, I did not even think for 1 second I'd be seeing a Michael Walker folder in that thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
The movie had a ton of visual style. I mean, that's what made it stand out. Everything was really stylized. Everything was really cool, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Very
Every
stylized,
Super
yeah.
super 80s.
every
yeah.
move had to be cool. Like he even like picked up. He cut his pizza with scissors, and then he had his gun cleaning kit in a egg crate, carton, and then like slammed the finger on the remote and was like, "Bam!" I'm like, "Damn, I can't watch any more of this." Pretty bad.
Too funny.
And I think Herman Schneider just passed away also, right?
Yes, I did want to add that. He passed away this year, actually.
Yeah,
And that was
rest
another
in
reason I
peace.
wanted to put that in there. Great knife maker, very kind of iconic piece. Fury did pieces of his for a long time. And there's been multiple ripoffs, but don't support ripoffs.
Yeah, I can't find it. I thought it was in a collection in Japan because it seems like right after it, he made another dagger, the Gem of the Orient, I think, that was even fancier.
Yeah.
But I think those are in a private collection, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, it should be in the Smithsonian if it's not.
Agreed.
Yeah,
There you go.
It should be in a museum.
it's worthy. What's next, Mark? What's your last one?
Last one from me is another one that I stole from Tom's list, so he'll be sad. And that's MacGyver.
Ooh.
And that's probably because of my super nerd roots. But yeah, MacGyver with the Swiss Army knife. Very consistent thing all the way into the opening sequence for the series. Had him opening the Swiss Army knife. And so I think it was actually a Tinker for most of the time, but it sounds like they used a bunch of different models at various episodes.
Yeah, I mean, surely you guys watched that growing up, right?
Every time it was on.
I loved that show. I hated that it was so nonviolent because it's okay to blow people up, but let's not use a gun. Just use a Swiss Army knife, but whatever.
Well, on the one episode where he took the gun apart instead of using it and all that, I was just like, you fool. Just shoot those assholes. Come on.
He took a gun apart and made it.
Yeah,
into
it was a
something
wheel
different?
gun, and he took the cylinder out of it and everything so it couldn't be used.
He loved to make bombs. I mean, but
Right.
yeah, I mean that. Who didn't want a Swiss Army knife as a kid when they're watching that? I mean,
Right.
and it was entertaining.
You say the Tinker was what he used most?
Yeah,
I
that's
think so.
That's what's in the opening credit and in I think a bunch of the early episodes, and then later on, it sounds like there were a number of different models that were pulled into the story.
Oddly enough, the Super Tinker is my favorite. That's the to me the all around best carry little piece.
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Mac Bircher.
Well, especially for like Christmas, man, it's got your scissors, it's got a little knife, it's got the stuff you need for opening weird packages and stuff like that. Love that little knife.
Oddly enough, I pulled up on Google something that's like MacGyver online, and it's Swiss Army's used in episodes. So every episode, it tells you which knife they used.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know. Have you tried to watch the new MacGyver?
I thought
No.
I saw that they were gonna do it. I assumed it was already off the air.
Totally hate it. No, I don't know. I saw it was playing the other night, and I was like, change the channel. But yeah, it wasn't worth watching.
Were you alone, or was someone else watching it?
No, they were just flipping through the channels, and that was on. I was like, no.
I thought maybe you had one of those really badass Google Home things, or whatever they're called.
Yeah, he asked Siri to change the channel.
The home spy bot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have one of those.
I'm so surprised. Yeah, when I was reading about, I found the same website you're talking about, Tom, where it talks about all the different episodes and which model of Swiss Army knife, which is really interesting. And then I came across something that said or suggested that somewhere along the way, his grandfather gave him that Tinker. And that's that's the storyline behind the Swiss Army knife.
Huh.
So
Yeah. I mean, it had to be included. I mean, that show was awesome. I mean, it went for quite a while.
Yeah.
yeah, it ran from 85 to 92, so 7 years.
Yeah.
That's a good run for prime time.
It is.
I had somebody doing something with a knife. You has to be part of this. All these things build.
What's interesting about it is that it's sort of the opposite of a Jimmy Lyle survival knife, right? Or a tracker knife, or it's kind of the ultimate opposite, but at the same time, it's the same, which is interesting to think about.
Well, it's a really positive presentation of the knife as a tool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Which is the beauty of knives, is every knife is a weapon, every knife is a tool. It's, at least in my mind, that's the beauty of a knife.
Right.
The utility of it.
All right, so that was my last one. So, Sean, I think your last one's an 80s gem as well, right?
Oh, man, my last one's the best movie that's ever been made. My last one is Conan the Barbarian.
Oh,
bam!
Man, that's
awesome.
It got me. I actually found the Marvel adaptation of the movie comic book at the library when I was really young, and that hooked me. And then I managed to sneak and see the movie when I was about 8 or so. And man, just both the swords that are prominently featured, the Atlantean sword and Father's sword. Man, I still dream about them to this day. I love both of those pieces.
It's interesting that you said you snuck out and saw it or whatever. Cause I didn't see it as a kid, but I collected I would buy the comic books on the down low.
Mm-hmm.
Cause, that was not approved reading in my household, right?
Right.
The forbidden
fruits. My mom ended up finding them all, which I loved those comic books so much, and she threw them all away. I was like, no! Like I had a whole stack of them, but anyways.
I have to know, how did the purchase of a comic book on the download go down for young Tom Crine? Was there a guy on the corner? Was there like a kid that had them all? What's the...
No, man, I loved going to the bookstore and stuff, and I just buy them and
just kind of put them on the bottom of the bag.
Put them in between another magazine and stuff,
I was just trying to see the devious side of Tom.
I mean, I lived in Arkansas, so there's not a whole lot of devious stuff going on where I lived.
Now, Sean,
not with that attitude.
Sean, you can talk about the designer of that kick-ass sword?
Yeah.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, both swords were designed by the production designer for the film, a man by the name of Ron Cobb. The Father's Sword, when it was made, was a sole authorship piece by Jody Sampson, and the Atlantean Sword was a collaborative piece between Jody and Tim Hutchhausen. And Mr. Hutchhausen carved the handle, and Jody did the blade.
Now, if somebody doesn't know who Jody Sampson is...
They should probably go fuck themselves, yes.
Yeah!
I knew it would happen. If not, I was going to do the same.
I couldn't help it. No, I was a huge Conan fan as a kid. But the books, I was a Robert E. Howard fan. I loved them to death. And
they were great.
I have to say, though, when I first watched Conan, I was a little disappointed. Because Arnold did not match, the Conan from the books.
Yeah.
He was
he wasn't the swarthy,
tall, dark-haired Sumerian,
I mean, the build was right.
It just didn't quite. And, I think they did a remake of that with that Jason, is it Momoa?
Jason Momoa.
I never watched it.
Yeah,
but
Khal Drogo.
He's one of my favorite actors. I love him as an actor.
I enjoy him now, but I never watched that movie. But he looks like, in my head, what Conan would have looked like.
Looked like, yeah. Man, I have seen that one. I actually own it, and it's not horrible. If you don't hold it in comparison to Conan the Barbarian, it's actually a really damn decent fantasy movie.
It's hard not to, though, because it's that weight of what it is, the name it represents.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a cool movie that when we were kids, it was crazy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and it's been so long since I've read any of the books or comics or anything, but wasn't he more of a thief in those books? I mean...
Yeah, a swashbuckler, buccaneer, a thief, a rogue, yeah.
He was always fighting his bad side. Conan of the Isles, though, don't ever read that if you don't want to shed a couple tears if you're a fan of it. I think it's Conan of the Isles. I think that's the one of that. But he had such a great...
Well, I like to feel bad, so I'm going to go check that out.
Yeah. But, I mean, Robert E. Howard he was a great writer. I think he committed suicide, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
He very much loved that character that he had created. And it was an awesome one, man.
So what was his... do you know from doing any of that research, Michael, was he displeased about the movie adaptation?
I believe he was gone well before the movies ever came out.
Oh yeah. Even the books I read, L. Sprague de Camp, and a few other guys had carried on. There's a lot of those books, those early books, where he just did some of them by himself, and then some of those were half finished by L. Sprague de Camp. Robert Jordan even did some adaptations after that, and he's the guy that did the Wheel of Time books, that are like still going, aren't they, Tom?
The Wheel of Times is finished.
Okay.
Yeah, he died, and then Brandon Sanderson finished like the last 2 books.
Which is this is all kind of crazy. This kind of back to the knife stuff. It's sort of, the authors do the same sort of thing, it seems like. Gets carried on and continued. And then that maker or writer goes on.
Dude, I'm on Audible right now just looking, and they've got all these omnibus Conan the Barbarian books, like 35 hours and stuff like that.
Wow.
Get 'em.
Now, man, if you want to have a real throwback to your childhood, there is a series of graphic novels of the Conan stories done by Kurt Busiek, last name spelled Busiek. Highly recommend them. When Kane was 9 or 10, I read every one of them to him, and it's one of the best reads we had together.
Nice.
Think those are on Amazon?
Oh, most definitely. They were put out by a major comic company, and very well done.
I'll check that out.
The art is fantastic. The story adaptations are true to the stories, and they're just solid. And if you have a kid, it's a great introduction to Conan.
No, were those...
It's kind of sad. Oh, go ahead,
No, I was
Birch.
going to say, are the drawings... Because to me, the Frazetta and stuff like that, that's how I got introduced in those types of drawings and paintings.
It's
and
very Frazetta-esque.
nice.
That's cool. Those I love those graphic novels, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I pulled it up on Audible, it has an author section on Robert E. Howard.
Mhm.
I had no idea when these were written.
Long time ago.
He died in 1936.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So he was only 30 years old when he killed himself.
Yeah.
He found out his mother went into coma and offed himself.
Yeah, he sat in his car and shot himself, didn't he?
It doesn't say, but
Well,
that's sad.
Well,
but yeah,
there's a great book. It's probably not great, but Robert Silverberg did a kind of a meta tribute, I guess, to him. It's called To the Land of the Living, or he also did another one called Gilgamesh the King. It's basically about Enkidu and Gilgamesh, these Sumerian, guys, way back day, history stuff. But they're trying to escape hell, and then they encounter Robert E. Howard driving around with somebody else, and he's looking for Conan, sort of thing. Kind of a neat.
Was it Lovecraft? Because he and Lovecraft were fast friends and correspondents.
I don't know who the guy that
awesome.
he was driving around. It was just kind of this neat little tribute that when I was reading one of those books when I was a kid. Did a lot of reading.
very cool.
That was a hell of a tangent we just took there.
It was.
Yeah, we went off on books and we're doing a movie thing, but the swords were awesome in that movie. I thought. Growing up, I was just like, wow.
Well, yeah, it's kids. The sword is like the epitome of, bigger is better. When it's a sword and someone's wielding it awesomely, you're just like, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Which, man, wielding those swords the way Arnold did, the Atlantean sword weighs 8.5 pounds.
Yeah.
I know,
Wow.
right?
It's
Can you imagine trying to grind that?
No.
I'd prefer not to.
I don't have enough space to grind something like that. You'd have to move. I don't know how you would hold the one end and then get to the other end. You get to that tip section, you're 3 feet away.
Yeah, wow.
Interesting.
Or do you have your helper hold the handle while you're... I don't know how that works even.
Man.
Yeah, crazy.
Today I was grinding like a 5-inch blade. I was like, this is a really big blade.
Yeah, I grind a folder and I'm already thinking of getting those little optivisors so I can see better.
So, Rambo, First Blood, 1982, Conan, 1982. 1982 is a good year for legendary knife movies.
Damn good year.
Hell yeah.
Which, fun fact here, the inscriptions on the Atlantean sword, complete gibberish, everything made up.
Really?
The inscriptions on Father's sword actually say something. It's done in a stylized English text, and it says, "Suffer no guilt, he who wields this in the name of Crom."
Whoa.
I was about to say, there better be some Crom in there.
Yeah, how fucking heavy's that?
That's awesome.
You sit on that mountain and you tell me about the secrets of the metal.
And then laugh at us.
Tell me that don't hit you in the knife-making feels.
Hell yeah, man. The riddle of steel.
Yeah, that was.
I thought you were going to say it has inscriptions that do mean something, but I may not speak them out loud.
Oh, I wish it was that cool. I wish I was that cool. Shit.
For fear that you may turn to dust, my friend.
Jody Sampson was a supremely talented individual and one of the better knife makers of our era, I think.
Indeed. And on the new Conan Blu-ray, when they re-released it on Blu-ray, there's actually a section in the extras that is about Jody.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, it's super well done for as short as it is. It's a tribute to him. The Blu-ray came out shortly after he died, and it's a really fitting, nice tribute to him. It actually shows him, I believe, grinding on the Father's sword is what it looks like.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And dude, it looks to me like he's just grinding that dude freehand on a Bader B3.
He did, man. He ground all that stuff freehand.
Crazy.
He was a stud.
No doubt.
Are we going to talk about James Earl Jones's hair at all? We at least mention it.
Dude, when you've got power like Thulsa Doom, you can wear your hair however the fuck you want.
Yeah, that was some crazy hair.
Well, it went with his helmet.
It matched exactly. Oh, man. Good choice, man. Excellent choice.
Yeah. Excellent choice.
Oh, man, I knew I had to have that one. I mean, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. Either it or Apocalypse Now is my number one, and I can't choose between the two.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call
show.
to leave it to your last one too, Sean.
Oh, save the best for last, man.
Awesome. Exactly. All right, Tom, what's your last one?
So, I also saved my favorite movie for last, and it may be a little bit random, but this movie, I love this movie. When it came out, it was 1997. I can remember seeing this in the theater, super excited about it. And the movie is called The Edge. This was right after I started making knives, a few years after. And, this was one of the first movies after I started where the knife was like the hero of the show. And it was also a custom knife. It was made by Brian Little. And, I actually went back and watched this movie again, and I enjoyed it more, I think. So, great actors. It had Anthony Hopkins, Alec Baldwin, Elle Macpherson's in it. But yeah, I just love this movie. And I think part of it was also I related to the Anthony Hopkins character, because, he was always reading about this stuff. And growing up, I read everything I could find. I love that kind of stuff. And I had a lot. I felt like I had a lot of this knowledge, but growing up, I didn't ever put it to use that much, until later. I've played more in the woods and stuff. But yeah, I just love this movie. Great cinematography, and the knife was the hero.
It was a good movie. It was really cool, and there's a lot of the pictures out there of the Brian Little and the knife and Anthony Hopkins sort of stuff, which was just really neat. Seeing the knife maker get to meet the actor and stuff.
He's actually in the movie too. He plays a cameo in it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's when they come back and like all the reporters are on the deck, I think he's in there if I remember right.
And that knife was a Blade magazine cover knife.
Oh, it about had to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I mean, if you guys have seen it, I mean, it's a great twist. Several twists in it, and just
I haven't seen that.
Great story.
It's good.
You haven't seen it? For real?
Yeah, I feel like I'm remiss now.
Yeah. It's my one of my favorite knife movies because, it's something that'll appeal to a wide variety of people, not just knife people or people that are into gratuitous violence like the Rambo movies or whatever. Yeah, I think it was well done.
It was sort of him coming of age as in being sort of surviving, not learning to survive, but learning to take his techniques to survive and use them.
Yeah. And this guy, he's a billionaire and yeah, he had a total change of the way he looked at everything by the end of the movie.
It was good. Good choice.
Thanks. What do you got for your last one?
No, I was just going to say, I'm like Sean. That's one I haven't actually seen. I read the synopsis when we were talking about these movies, but I've never watched that one. I'll have to watch it.
Oh, yeah. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, to add that to the list.
You want to get pizza and a movie?
Yeah, man.
Dude, we'll do it at Blade.
Oh, there you go. Movie night at Blade. New tradition.
It would be kind of fun to actually rent a room and actually show a movie, have people come.
That would be pretty funny.
I was thinking it'd be cool to project it outside the pit on a wall.
Yeah, like on that big so elevator cool. Shaft thing.
But probably not Cobra. Let's not do Cobra.
No, not Cobra.
From 1997, The Edge. I got that on my list. I got to go watch that.
I think you'll like it.
I didn't realize that was that old.
Yeah, I can remember watching that.
All right. So like Tom said, Michael, what's your last one?
I'm going to have to battle Sean on this one as possibly the best movie ever from my youth. Commando.
Woo! Rambo 4.
It has to be Commando. I probably watched this movie, I don't know how many times. I mean, I taped it off a TV at one point, and wore that out. Just an awesome movie. Same line as kind of Predator and stuff like that. It was like your ultimate sort of dude movie, kicking ass, shooting guns, knives all over the place. And we get to revisit old Jack Crane in this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I know everyone out there has watched this movie. If you haven't, just go watch it a whole bunch of times. It's probably not as cool as it was when I was a kid, but I bet it's still pretty cool.
It's cool in a different way.
Cut somebody's arm off and beat him with his arm, didn't he? If I'm remembering right.
The saw blades.
Dude, I just see the circular saw blade frisbees. That's all I think.
That was so cool.
And never having to reload.
Yeah. So, okay, this is another Jack Crane type of thing. So he started out by watching Iron Mistress movie. He loved it. And that got him all excited for the buoys and stuff like that. And like we talked about, that's, your James Bowie and stuff like that movie. So he started making these kind of nice buoy stuff, but then First Blood hit. And 1982, then everybody wanted a survival knife. So he got a bunch of requests to make survival knives. So he came out with his LS1, his life support system, 1. And it was like a 9-inch long, 2-inch wide, 1/4 inch, 440C. I think he had some in like coated 1095 or something. And it's just a badass knife. It's your hollow handle, it's just really cool. And it's his own style, like we talked about earlier. So, and I don't know why he had an agent, but supposedly he had an agent who took some knives to Hollywood. And this is going to be another throwback. They were featured on Airwolf. You guys watch that one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tour of Duty and Airwolf. A couple of old school cool ones.
Tour of Duty was so good.
Oh, yeah.
Was Airwolf with the helicopter?
Yeah, Jan Michael Vincent in the helicopter.
What?
Which one was the
Kit
one?
Was on
that was Knight Rider,
buddy. Confusing Airwolf with Knight Rider.
Sorry.
Man, pump the brakes,
Shit,
Tom.
Man.
Sorry.
Actually going to be like Sequest DSV. All right. 1985. His agent was contacted by the Tom Shaw guy. And he's a guy who had actually, so I'm wrapping all this shit together. He had used talked with Jody Sampson and worked with him with the Conan movies. And he told him, hey, we're working on this new movie called Commando and all this stuff. So they sent him. Arnold liked him, but he also wanted, a smaller one. So he created this stiletto version that he called, the Commando. Kind of have to. That was like a 6-inch blade. You'll probably, if you Google this stuff, you'll see like this set. Because he made like the big one, and he made basically a survival knife dagger, which is pretty damn cool on its own.
Oh yeah.
So it's just it's a badass movie. The badass knives, And oddly enough, I guess Jack Crane, he never wanted his knives to be used in the hands of bad guys. Because he thought that, the knives have kind of a bad enough reputation as it is. And he thought maybe, he wanted them to be in the hero's hands, which is, I think, kind of cool. But man, that movie was so awesome. Lots of 80s, quips and, bad little one-liners.
Oh my gosh, the one-liners are fast and furious in that movie.
When him and Mr. Metal Armor guy at the end fighting, and he tells him
Bennett.
Yeah, time to let out some steam. But it's that
let off some steam, Bennett.
That quintessential, that picture where you see him big ass guns and he's holding his damn, big ass survival knife. It's just pretty cool. And you can't tell me you weren't excited when it was like time to kick ass. The war paint came on, and it was like this, I'm going to load all my shit into my vest. He had everything in there. It was a cool moment. When you're a kid, it got you going. It was badass. Mm-hmm. It made you want to, be that. And that knife was just like, it was just, once again, it was awesome. Kind of stole the show.
That was a good story too. Yeah.
What's that now?
The storyline was good too. I mean, it was like, I enjoyed it.
I don't think anyone's going to be writing a thesis on it or, write some sort of story like First Blood, but yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I mean, he was saving his daughter and shit. Had really great music, good bad guys.
Yeah. There's also a classic Seiko watch in that movie
where they changed
that's now called
the dial on it because they want to be able to see it.
Well, yeah, it's like basically a tuna can with a digital area, so it's called the Arnie.
Yeah, you're not gonna catch me sleeping on some watch trivia.
Yeah, so the Arnie is from that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very awesome. Love that movie.
Yeah, Jack Crane again's a great knife maker. I love his knife. His designs are so clean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you mentioned how he wouldn't allow his blades to be in the hand of the bad guys. The bad guy's knife in that was actually a mashup. It was some production blade, I can't find the type, made it up with a 1918 trench knife handle.
Yeah. It was a pretty cool knife on its own. It really was. Now, why Bennett was wearing that little kind of mesh,
Because it was the 80s, man. It was
International
style.
Male tank top.
Yeah, it was a tank top mesh.
Straight out of International Male catalog from the 80s.
Interesting stuff. It was a different time then. Of course, watching these movies now, if there wasn't nostalgia to it attached to them, we'd probably be like, what in the hell? But hell, there's a ton of nostalgia attached to these movies. A big part of why a bunch of us got interested in knives. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, no, there were certainly not movies that, threw gas on the fire.
Mm-hmm. They really did.
Yeah, very much an 80s-centric list, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 out of our 12 movies we talked about were all mid-early 80s kind of things.
And we left out a lot. There's a ton of great movies. I'm sure you guys will let us know what we forgot.
Oh, yeah.
But we limit ourselves to 3 each. And, we kind of had to start with...
Birch, do you have like another one that should have been here?
Oh, I've got the bonus just for you guys. All right. So we were talking about the United Cutlery pieces and the Double Shadow. The knife we talked about in a previous...
What movie was that? I tried to find it.
Hold on now. It's going to be good.
Tom, don't ruin the
So
suspense
I'll post
now.
a photo up, but Tom was kind enough to send me a double shadow from United Cutlery. It is the wire wrapped, kind of funky, whatever. Okay, and a movie it was used in was a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie called Time Cop, which was
Oh yeah.
not really that great a movie. And if you know anything
No,
about
it wasn't.
old JVCD, he liked to do the splits. And like in every movie, if you ever watched him, he loved to do the splits. And I watched the fight scene from this, and it's not bad. You know, it's like a decent little knife fight. But sure as shit, at the end, he's got to like jump on some shit and do the splits in his underwear. And I'm like, come on, did we need to add this to it? But there you go. That little honorable mention goes to you, Sean, for talking about the double shadow.
Well, guess who Tom sent a Highlander Bowie to?
Oh, shit.
This guy. So he's been a busy beaver on the United website.
Well, guys, after that, I had to send those to you. I mean, it was just like, those were pretty cool knives, and I felt you missed out in your childhood, so.
Well, man, seriously, thank you. And you have no idea how that made my fucking month.
It was pretty awesome.
mean,
I appreciate
it. Came,
it.
I opened it, and I was
Cool.
just like, oh my gosh.
You're still running around chopping stuff.
Well, shit, yeah.
I am JCVD splitting it right now.
Yeah, that movie was I'll be honest, it kind of freaked me out because, I mean, is that the one where the kid like sacrifices himself at the very beginning?
No.
I don't think so. No,
Okay,
No, we
so
talked about that. I think that one's Mr. Frost. Let me check it out.
I mean, it's highly
there's one.
possible that that movie that knife got used in probably a couple different ones because it's kind of pretty wicked looking knife, pretty scary looking. But yeah, it was just and it even catches, between the two blades, it even catches the blade between the two during the little knife fight.
That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of JVC, isn't he doing something now where he's like all this whole time it was basically he was an undercover spy or something? Isn't there some show on?
Yeah, I watched a couple of
Somewhere.
those, and it was kind of funny where it talks about all these bad horror or all these horrible 80s movies he was doing as a front for tax money or something. It kind of reminds me.
What is that?
I think it's called like JVCD or whatever it is, JCVD. Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe just call it Jean-Claude or something. I don't know. It's something like that. It's not.
Yeah,
it's really.
I wanted to watch it because it looked kind of funny.
It is so tongue-in-cheek. It's not bad. I watched a couple. It kind of reminds me of that great movie that Sam Rockwell and the fellow that being John Malkovich and stuff did it about the host, the TV host, game show host. What the hell was that called?
I don't know.
Sean, where you at on this one?
Man, I'm trying to find the horror movie Tom was talking about.
You remember that movie, right?
Oh, you damn right I remember it. That's a
He's
very
like on some
powerful
chairs
scene.
or something.
Yeah, and he thrusts himself down onto the knife as a sacrifice to Satan, yeah.
Yeah, as his dad's walking in, that movie freaked me out.
You're not confusing it with the Golden Child, are you?
Most certainly not.
I hope not.
Nope.
Which, and for the record, the suicide sacrifice ritual is a real thing.
Yeah, pass on that.
Oh, well, yeah, me too. I'm just throwing it out there for, posterity.
We don't, just a disclaimer,
Right.
we don't recommend that. Yeah. For all those listening.
Right. It's not sanctioned by the Mark of the Maker podcast.
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is the movie I was talking about.
Huh.
It had George Clooney, Joey Roberts, Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell about dude who did the Gong Show, right?
Yeah, that JCVD one kind of where it's kind of a act like Chuck what's his face has been a CIA guy. It reminded me of that a little bit. That's a great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen that one.
I wrote it down.
Interesting.
This was, I've got a whole list of stuff I need to go watch.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, that's that.
Dude, if you haven't seen The Edge, please go watch it.
It is.
I love that
It is
movie.
good.
I will.
Yeah, I got it on my list too. There's, it's really funny. We set this up to record this episode tonight, and on the Blade Magazine website, there's actually an article that was published 6 days ago called "Who Did Movie Knives Better? First Blood versus The Hunted." So there's a pretty cool article out there. Folks want to go read about
which
that.
ironically was our
Nice
number
write-up.
1 and number 2 pick.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Maybe by no coincidence.
So I don't think I didn't see that before we made our picks.
No, me either.
Just great minds.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, they had great minds. Mediocre's okay too. So
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. And now I got a giant list of movies I got to watch, and it proves that we're children of the 80s, basically.
either that or the 80s made some awesome knife-related movies.
I think it helped. I think it helped sculpt some knife makers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I think it was very interesting finding out, reading about the Iron Mistress and thinking about how that sculpted that era.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually got the Iron Mistress on my DVR right now. I just haven't watched it.
I've never watched it. That's on my list of things I need to go do.
It's long. It recorded for like 3 hours and 3.5 hours, something like that.
Yeah, that time is usually allotted to something I can find on Netflix and watch on an iPad while they're watching, something for kids. Now, if you want a pretty decent Bowie movie, Seraphim Falls, if you haven't checked that out. I think Pierce Brosnan?
Is that the Australian kind of outback sort of cowboy movie?
No, that's Quincy Down Under.
No.
Quigley Down Under.
Did you say Clancy?
I said Quincy.
Quincy Down Under. Like fucking Jack Klugman in Australia?
exactly.
Hell yeah. That's a party.
That just put a very odd shooting a Sharps rifle image in my head.
I'm just thinking about Jack Klugman's nose now.
Yeah, I'm going to put that one on my list too. That looks good.
It is actually a really good movie, Cool knives. Good movie. Oddly enough, one of the very few movies I made in probably not so distant past was after a guy watched that movie and wanted one and as an order. So
Nice.
That's cool.
yeah.
So, what are you guys playing with during the show, or get anything new?
Oh, let me go. I actually got something new. I got a little Great Eastern Cutlery boy's knife in green linen micarta.
Nice.
Is that a number 15?
Man, I am not sure. It just says boy's knife on the tube.
That's very cool.
It's a little 2-blade guy. Fits in my watch pocket.
I love Great Eastern Cutlery.
Me too. Holy shit, man. Are they not one of just the best deals going right now for the bang for the buck you get?
Yeah, they're solid.
How much you pay for that?
$85.
Wow.
$5. I'm pretty sure I just said how much you pay for that. That's a good
So
sentence
I'm
structure.
pretty sure that's a Model 15, and yeah, it's a great size, and you're talking bang for the buck. For $85, you get a 1095 blade, which is heat treated by one of the better heat treaters in the country. You get natural materials or micartas, just like if you get jig bone and 1095, it's like a knife that was made 120 years ago. I mean, it's really cool.
It's pretty awesome.
Man, I'm not the biggest jig bone guy, but their jig bone work looks fantastic. I like everything
yeah.
I've seen from them. Period.
I don't mind.
I actually
jig
picked
bone
up 2 knives.
on an old slip joint. I don't mind that at all. If it's kind of period correct, I like it.
I love jig bone. I use a lot of it still.
Well, part of it depends on the color too. If it's the reddish brown, darker stuff, I favor it more than some of the lighter colors. Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all about the knife.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
The other one I picked up, it's one of the, I guess, a medium-sized 2-blade Stockman pattern with natural canvas micarta on it.
Awesome.
Yeah, their stuff's awesome. At one time, so I've recently started selling off some of my collection, basically to help get my mill up and stuff like that. But I was regrinding them, and basically I would order 10 at a time. I'd regrind all of them, put one in my collection, sell the others. So it wasn't really costing me anything to build my collection. And at one point I had over 350 of those things.
Gee whiz.
Wow.
It was crazy. I'm like, what? How did this happen? But Yeah, slowly I'm selling those off.
I mean, I can only imagine how your regrinds do on those because they ain't ground too bad in the first place. I mean, they're decent cutting little knives. And after you get done with them, they've got to be like a friggin' scalpel.
So it's funny how they're ground. So if you get a Wharncliffe blade, they're actually ground, or sheep's foot, they're ground pretty well. I still take, they're about 15 to 20 and I take them down to under 10. So you are getting, 30-40% increase in performance for the geometry. But any of them where the tip curves up, the way they're ground, the tip just gets thick because they're ground straight off a machine.
Oh, are they on a burger or something doesn't have any tilt?
So any of them with a clip point or drop point, the regrind really thins down the tip and makes that more useful in my opinion.
Well, yeah, your tip ought to be pointy. It ought to be thin.
Yeah. I love the Gradation cutlery. They're by far the best traditional slip joint being made right now, in my opinion.
Agreed, man. Co-sign on that all day.
Quick question. You said the best heat treat in the country. Who are you talking about?
Peters.
Peters? Okay. I knew someone would want to know about that.
Yeah. They're one of them. They're in my opinion, that's who I use. They are doing a really nice job on heat treating.
Nice.
Yeah. Did you get anything new, Birch?
No, I have not got anything new. Materials. I bought
fiddling with anything?
Basically a pencil, and I was dropping a slip joint earlier. I had to quit for the podcast, but basically I've been writing stuff down and then doodling on paper so I don't do anything too noisy.
I've been trying to do that, but Mark, what about you?
I got a couple new things. I got a Gene Wiseman shadow pattern with some natural micarta traditional slip joint. And this thing is
very, very cool.
Yeah, it's a very nice piece.
Gene was in my shop today.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's coming back tomorrow too.
Gene's stuff is a bargain as far as I'm concerned. And
it really is. They're
nice pieces. I mean, this is a great everyday, real deal user. It carries super nice. If you soften it up just a little further, I think it'd be even nicer. But it's a sunk joint in the whole thing, so it just rides in your pocket really nice. Just a great little knife. So,
and they're great value too. I mean, what did you end up paying for that? Just curious.
I got it secondhand, so I got it really cheap. But but yeah,
his prices are really reasonable.
They are, and it's built right. I mean, I'm very impressed with it especially at that price point. So that's really cool. And then some guy talked about these Overready Boss flashlights a while ago, and that sent me back down the rabbit hole on stupid flashlights. So I got a couple of those too.
I told you they were the coolest flashlight being made, right?
You did. And
was I right?
They are pretty fantastic. I have another one that I really like, a barrel flashlight that I'm real happy with. Those Boss lights are really cool. So yeah, the
Boss lights are so cool because of how they're programmed. I mean, they're super bright. If you get a 70, I don't think there's anything out there as bright for the size.
Yeah, that's what I have.
But the programming is so sick.
I have a couple 70s and one in titanium, one in aluminum, and yeah, they're monsters. And yeah, like Tom said, this is a really interesting thing. I don't know if people understand about these. I had no idea till it showed up. And
Really?
I had no idea about how it was programmed until it showed up. And then I'm like, oh yeah, well, I know this is programmable. I can change it from, they have like a color LED. So like there's a red or an amber LED in there, which is really nice for when you're very much in the dark, like middle of the night kind of stuff. And
around the house.
Yeah. And I knew I could change the levels of each of the settings. So I'm like, oh, how do you do it? I figured it was like lots of flashlights. There's a goofy series of clicks and twists and turns and jump up and down 5 times kind of thing. And it turns out they have an optical sensor for people who don't know. And you go to a website on your phone. I think people actually do it from their computer as well. But the easiest way for me was to do it on my phone. You pick the settings for what you want in the different modes. And then you say program the light, and it puts a green square on the screen of your phone. And you take the flashlight, put it in programming mode, and set it nose down on the screen, and then let it sit. And suddenly the little green box starts to strobe. and it programs the light engine using this sequence of strobe light, basically, and that is cool as hell. So
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating.
I need to go back and reprogram mine because I also found out. So if you run into 18350s in your 70, you're going to get 3600 lumens.
Right. And
Oddly enough, if that accidentally turns on in your pocket, that's enough to melt the hole in your pocket and burn your leg.
Right.
Which has happened to me a couple times. But there's a rebound program. You can program it so if that happens, it'll actually turn itself off if it comes on in your pocket.
Right.
So I got to do that. But yeah, the programming is super cool.
Yeah. Bounce setting, I think they call it.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to adjust the bounce setting on mine.
Yeah. So that was neat.
Because they get super hot. I'm just telling you really fast. It's like,
I figured
you're
that.
like, what the heck is going on in my leg?
I figured out the other night because I was shining out back into the woods. I'm like, man, this thing's really got some serious punch. And I was doing that for a while. And then I'm like, holy shit, this thing's getting hot. So yeah, they seriously put it out.
Yeah.
So it's really neat lights. And you know what it reminded me of, Birch, is that that episode of Black Mirror on Netflix where there's that the lady that is in the prison camp basically, and they sort of, it's like it's a weird concept. It's like a resort prison camp where there's this prisoner who did some terrible stuff, and they have her locked up in this camp, but she doesn't realize that that's where she is, and she has to relive this horrible experience over and over and over again.
Where she's running from them and stuff.
Yeah, where she's running from people that want to kill her or whatever. And
what show is that?
It's a series on Netflix called Black Mirror.
It is Twilight Zone for technology.
Yes.
It is amazing.
It sounds a little bit like The Prisoner.
Well, what's interesting about it is that it's different every episode. They're basically like short stories. So the whole story is an episode. And then there's 5 or 6 or 8 episodes per season. So that's where the Twilight Zone similarity comes in. Mm-hmm. Is the story's different with different actors, different characters, different storyline every time. So they're sort of self-contained short stories. But in that episode, this lady basically kind of comes to, like out of, I don't know, being groggy or whatever. And there's a TV in front of her that's flashing a symbol. It's like a white screen with this special symbol on it. And she can't figure out what it is. She doesn't know what's going on. And she sees this symbol flashing all over the place on TVs and on phone screens and everything else. And so when this thing started flashing the screen to program the flashlight, I'm like, oh, snap. It's exactly like that's on that show, yeah. So I thought all of a sudden a bunch of zombie-looking people would jump out and try to kill me.
Oh, there's another version, or another good one on Amazon Prime that's all based off of Philip K. Dick stories. I think it's called like Electric Sleep or something, or Electric Dreams. Oh, it's good. It's all same idea. They're trying to, I think, get some of that Black Mirror money.
Yeah, there you go.
Huh.
But it's good.
All right, so I think what else we got to talk about? Blade Show's coming up.
What about me?
Oh yeah, Tom. What are you
Tom?
Goofing around with?
Wow, man. I was super lucky and was able to pick up a Randall in the last sale. So I have a Model 4, which is one of their hunters with the 6-inch blade, but it's set up as a fighter. So it's the Model 4-6 fighter. Super cool piece, very reminiscent of the Zachary knife, where kind of the Randall fighter started. And then the second knife I got is because of the podcast. We had talked about the Schrade Sharp Finger, and somebody mentioned was it the Golden Horn, or I don't know, the other Schrade. You know what I'm talking about? The what's it called? Has like the fake Delrin handle with that looks like stag with the finger grooves.
Oh yeah, what was that? I remember we talked about
the upswept, almost scale-esque.
Yeah,
blade.
What is it? The Golden?
I don't know.
Golden Boy or something. Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now.
I know what you're talking about.
Sorry, I forgot the name.
We can just call it the Golden Boy if you want.
I can't. I'll have to look. Sorry.
Golden Pony. We'll call it that then.
The Golden Pony.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. But I always wanted one of those because I can remember, growing up, we didn't have video games and all that. We'd go to my grandma's house and she'd pull out the Montgomery Ward's catalog or whatever, and you'd sit there and look at it. And the sporting goods section always had this knife and it always looked beautiful. And ironically, it really reminds me of a Randall Model 3. But
it does.
I always wanted one, never could afford it. And so I saw one on eBay really cheap and I picked it up. So
Nice.
now I have my own.
So
Is it the Schrade Golden Spike?
That's it. Golden Spike.
So it's not the Golden Pony.
It's my favorite
Close,
knife.
It's close enough.
It's my favorite knife that I've always wanted, and I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
As a kid, I never had one. I just wanted
Right.
one as a kid because I can remember looking in the catalog and thinking I like the look of that knife.
You should have taken
But
some
yeah,
of
Sean,
your Conan contraband over to the house there, so you didn't have to look at the same catalog.
Oh, dude, I had to keep that on the down low.
I'm a down low.
You couldn't take that, especially over to my grandparents' house, man.
Was it just one
Get busted with
catalog, or
that.
was it at least a new one every time you went there?
Well, I mean, we went there every Friday night, so basically, growing up, every Friday night we would go eat at the same restaurant, and it was called the El Monterey, and we called it the Greasy Spoon. And then we'd go to my grandma and grandpa's house. So every Friday night, that was kind of the ritual.
Nice.
I'm glad you got one. That's pretty cool. It's always nice to get a piece from, memory, that piece of nostalgia. It doesn't seem as daunting anymore. Those prices back then when you were a kid are like, oh man, that's a lot of.
You're like,
I got to clear this much.
$15.
Yeah, I got to clear this much brush. I got to put these many, posts in the ground.
yeah, it's just a neat piece. So
Nice.
Well, it's a good looking knife.
Yeah.
right. As a kid, I was like, that thing. The lines on it were like smoking hot.
Truthfully, I'd forgotten all about that knife until you brought it up, and it just popped right in my head. It was the same one that stuck in that, that big display.
Yep. So you guys started getting ready for Blade yet?
I actually have.
Awesome.
I started putting pieces back, and of course, I'm not getting paid right now, but I'll get paid then.
Yep.
Someday.
It's like a savings account.
Sort of. There's a give and take, but it's nice to have pieces.
Yeah.
So I try not to be so stressed. Getting ready to go to Jerry McGinnis's for a collaboration next week, so that'll be fun.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what you guys come up with. That'll be exciting.
Oh yeah. We did kind of a mix between a Tangent and one of his Peligro.
Cool.
Nice. What about you, Tom? You ready for Blade Show?
Ready? No. Have I started? Yeah, I finally got started, but, I was talking today and it's like, since the TKI knives, I feel like I've been behind for the last 4 months. I feel, you ever get that feeling where it's like, I feel like I'm 2 weeks behind. It's like I can't get caught up, and I'm slowly getting caught up, but it's like I've felt behind the 8 ball since December. And I feel like I'm finally starting to get caught up. I've started for Blade, which, this is probably the earliest I've ever started. So I feel pretty good. I started cutting out some frames for folders, and I counted today, I've got 30 knives glued up, and
Wow.
I've got another 15 or 20 almost ready to glue up. So, hopefully it's going to be a fun Blade show, and hopefully it's not going to be super stressful like usual, where I come down to the last week and I'm like, I wonder what I'm going to build for Blade.
Yeah.
Every year I tell myself I'm not going to do that, and this year I'm actually trying not to do that. So,
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm really trying this year. It's not, the stress is too much. It gets to you.
yeah.
Yeah, it do.
Well, and it's better if you plan it out or do what Sean's doing.
I like the Sean route. That seems like a really good route.
I think both of you
Yeah.
guys are pretty far ahead of the curve compared to normal. That's not a bad thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've still got 6 weeks or so.
Right?
Yeah. But, you know, there's always something that can come up. Kids getting sick, you know. There's always something.
Oh, yeah.
You got to try to prepare.
You know, my kids have done outdoor school, which is always at the worst time. It's like the last week of April into May. And so this is the last year for outdoor school. So I'm gone for a week for outdoor school. But you know, I know it, so I'm planning ahead and I'm just trying to get stuff done. I'd like to have all my fixed blade knives done, you know, this month, you know, so I don't have to worry about that next month. Just build a few folders and call it good.
Sounds good. What about you, Mr. Mark?
For Blade Show?
Just in general, how you doing, Mark? What do you got going on?
Well, Michael, I'm doing well. No, I had a whole bunch of cool ray gun beads I did last weekend. I probably won't do any this weekend because I got to edit the show, but maybe the following weekend I'll do some Zerk stuff. People love that. But that's been going really well. And I got some merch I got to do for the ray gun thing. I have that artwork that Lydia Roberts did for me. I got to get that on some shirts and stuff. So I got a bunch of things all stacked up. And then we're doing some merch for the show. So more to come on that. Folks, stay tuned to the Facebook group and the Instagram for a little bit more information. So I'm doing a bunch of legwork for those things. And what else is going on?
One hint. They are not signed Cobra DVDs.
Oh.
Dude, but what we have coming out, what Mark's been working on is pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
very
righteous.
much.
Yeah, and we're going to try, I probably shouldn't say this out loud on the show, but we're going to try to have a merch thing that somehow ties into something fun at Blade Show. So for listeners that are headed to Blade Show, we're going to have a little merch thing and maybe tie it into something, a little giveaway or something cool. So more to come on that once we know what we're going to do for sure, but stay tuned and we'll talk more about it.
Good stuff.
Sounds awesome.
And then Sean and I are going to be at Blade Show as well, but we're going to be representing the podcast. So thanks to, in case she's listening to the show, Miss Missy Stearns from the Blade Show events marketing team. And there's the train right on cue for Missy.
Right?
So Sean and I
I was feeling lonely.
Sean and I are going to be there representing the show and talking to some makers and probably some collectors too. So we're hoping to have some Mark of the Maker t-shirts, and so watch out for us. I'll be at Birch's table part of the time. I know Sean will be wandering around too. And so yeah, please come talk to us about the show. We'd be interested to hear people's feedback.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, please, if you see us, come say hey. Let us know what you like about the show. Let us know what you don't like about the show.
If you don't like it, don't let us know.
Take that stuff to Tom, but tell Sean and I all the stuff you love about the show.
Oh, no, I want the negative, man. I want the negative. I'll bounce it back at them, though. I'm kind of shitty like that.
Oh, what? Oh, yeah? You're not so great either.
Yeah, you're funny looking.
All right, we got anything else we want to cover, fellas? I think we're
Nope.
pretty well wrapped
That
up.
was a good podcast. That was fun.
I think we got a...
Oh, that was wicked fun.
Oh, that was a blast. We got a couple more shows coming up before Blade, right? One's going to be...
Mm-hmm.
We're going to hit that etiquette.
Yeah, Blade Show etiquette. We got to do that, and so we're going to try to get that put out before the show.
There's etiquette for shows?
Yeah, who thunk?
What?
Well, we'll see.
It'll be fun.
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
Horror stories will abound.
There's going to be a few of those. And etiquette for makers, too, not just for collectors and whatnot.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps it up. Yeah, we'll have an episode about shows and etiquette and other things, and I'm not sure what else we're going to have before Blade Show, but we got a couple things that we...
Maybe talk about Randall Knives or something.
Maybe talk about Randall.
Hopefully we can get that done.
I'm going to take the brunt on that. I've had that book longer than I should have, but I'm going to get it moving tomorrow.
Yeah. We just want to do it right. So
Yeah.
we're trying to...
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to make sure we do it right.
Oh, man, there's just so much ground to cover. Holy hell.
Well, that's the thing, though. The Randall story is a big commitment, and we'll bring it to you when it's ready and not before. That's what it comes right down to. So One programming note, due to some family commitments, our next episode, episode 11, will be out to you about a week later than our typical release schedule. We normally release every 2 weeks, but episode 11 will come about 3 weeks after this episode that you're listening to now. One common thing we all share is a commitment to family first, and we really only plan to record if we're all available. So stay tuned, and we'll have episode 11 out to you as soon as we can. Thanks again for your interest and participation, both on Instagram and in the Facebook group. We get lots of great feedback through social media, and we really do truly appreciate all your kind words and your feedback. As always, thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
See y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Krein on the web at KreinKnives.net, in his Facebook group, Krein Knives, or in his Instagram account, at Krein Knives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram at birchtreeblades. For myself and the Raygun Bead Project, we're on the web at raygundivision.com. We have a Facebook group called Raygun Division, or my personal Instagram, at msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or some discussion about the show itself, you can find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram, at Mark of the Maker. Last but not least, the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. Thanks for listening.